Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to One Ummah FM on 95.6 and the 3Ws oneummahfm.co.uk. You're listening to Armchair Punditz. That's right, the Armchair Punditz. So there's been a 2-week gap, inshallah, since the last show, which we hope you enjoy listening to, inshallah. So what is this show about? I think you know the format by now. This is our third show, I think. So I'm not losing count yet, but the third show, inshallah. And the format basically is I have some pundits with me. I am one of the pundits. I've got two brothers today, inshallah, with me. They are the same guys you heard last time. So Amber and Shabazz, Jazakallah, welcome to the show, inshallah. And this show is all about us guys pretending to be pundits, i.e. trying to make an informed opinion, to talk about some things if we know it, but obviously we don't know it, we're not experts, and actually that's the real point of this show. So let's face it, everyone at home that's listening, inshallah, wherever you are, we all armchair pundits because we all have an opinion on something. That's the reality of human nature, inshallah. Some of the things that we've talked about before, you may not agree with. That's fantastic, because if you agree or don't agree, we want you guys to be involved. We want you, inshallah, to text us if you can, to phone us, to get involved. You can also, if you want, although it's not something we can take on air, but you can actually reach out to us on email, and that's something that I'd request. So if you're thinking of, listening into us and you're thinking about future subjects potentially, we'd love to hear from you, inshallah. And the best way of doing that is on our email address, which is Armchair Punditz. That's all one word, Armchair Punditz. Pundits with a Z, which is very clever, I think, on our side, but pundits with a Z at gmail.com. So armchairpundits@gmail.com. But in terms of the show as we go along, inshallah, the numbers for you are 0118 975 8300. That's 0118 975 8300. That's the call in if you have any opinions that you want to share with us, inshallah. If you want to text us, feel free to do that. Obviously, texting generation out there these days. So 07909 567 527. That's 07909 567 527. Okay, so that said, before I bring in the pundits and before we kick off today's discussion, what is the topic? Last time we were talking about lack of academic achievement in the youth, and I think the first topic was about the youth again, and we were talking about why aren't there Muslim professional footballers specifically from an Asian background. So we're not having a go at you if you're young. We're still young, alhamdulillah, actually, but we're not having a go at you by any means. So today we're going to kind of twist it around slightly. It still involves the youth, but we're going to look at parents. And we're going to talk about some of the challenges that specifically Muslim parents face bringing up kids in the West, in this country. Now, obviously, we want to talk a little bit about what these challenges are, how we think they can overcome some of these challenges. So we'll give you some of our opinions on this, some of it based on experience, inshallah. How can they protect the kids from bad influences? What could and should they be doing? Now, what you're going to hear on the show, as I said, it's the Armchair Pundits just chewing it over and discussing it. Some of these concerns and challenges, they're generic. Okay, so they don't just apply to Muslim or Asian parents, they apply to any parent, okay, when it comes to bringing up their child or children. And actually, when you think about some of the societies in the Muslim world, they're not particularly Islamic anyway, okay, we can get into it, that's a separate debate, let's leave that one for now. But the reality is that some of those challenges apply equally there as well. But for the purposes of this show, inshallah, we're going to be discussing it in the context of living here in the UK. Alright, so let me just get the brothers Amber and Shabazz looking at me now. They want to get in. So let's get them to give salam, inshallah, make sure the mics are working, and then I'll introduce this topic. So guys, you want to just give me salam so I can hear you?
Salam, brothers and sisters.
Wa alaikum salam. Shabazz. Wa alaikum salam. So hopefully you can hear that. I think I heard it in my headphones here, so that means the mics are working. So hopefully the gremlins are at bay. Last time, I shared this with you, last time we did the show, we had real problems on the phone. So those of you listening in probably found some issues. We had a brother who was waiting. I think he called in about 5 times. He could hear us, we couldn't hear him. So I'm very much hoping that you can hear me and the two pundits with me, inshallah. And I'm also hoping that you are going to get involved with the show today. All right, okay. So I've talked about, I've introduced the topic. It's challenges facing Muslim parents, some of the worries and concerns that they have. Let's begin here. Okay, so I think probably one of the biggest challenges, guys, is going to be when you're raising kids, is going to be about being able to relate to them. Okay, so you've got kids as they're getting older, babies, toddlers, growing up, and one of the biggest concerns I think most parents will share is, can I really relate to the kids as they grow up? Okay, so any thoughts on that? I mean, I would assume that we will agree that's a big concern. Any initial thinking on that? So, for example, is background of the parents a problem? Does that have an effect? Maybe if the parents are from abroad, do you think that parents these days feel they can talk openly with the kids? They can discuss concerns with them? What kind of relationship do they have? Is it a friendship type relationship? Is it in some cases, and I think there are examples of this, where for whatever reason, they're actually quite distant. You know, the parents and the kids, and they can't really relate to each other. So, guys, Ambar, Shabazz, whoever, let's kick off, inshallah.
Right, assalamu alaikum guys, again, it's Amber from Oxford again. It's a big debate, this one. Bringing up parents in the UK, it's a difficult one, because you can say, yes, it could be done from their background, where they're originally from, if they're from Pakistan, or they're from another part of the world, or they're brought up here. Is you need to be, as for my opinion, because I've got 2 children myself, so for my side of it, I'm in that stage now where I'm bringing my children up.
Right.
So I'll bring it across to my experiences, and you need to be a friend with them, and but at the same time you need to be, as a father, and you need to share them discipline as well.
Okay.
But you always need to communicate with them, talk to them about ways of life, because children are always going to say to you, "What's this, Dad?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why do we do this? Why do we do this?"
Sure.
There's always going to be why. The easiest thing we can say, "Shut up," which is a normal thing, isn't it? You say,
Yeah.
"I'll talk to you later. We'll talk about it tomorrow."
Right.
But once you start explaining to kids the little gritty little things, why we do this, you may not know all the answers, because we're not going to know every single answer to all their questions. But if you can explain the much as you can to them, that'll make a big difference to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when is upbringing, it comes into part. I think a lot of us, especially from the Asian background, who are probably from the brought up from Pakistan side of it, who
Right.
come over here, who probably didn't have that relationship with their children, and maybe when they build that relationship up, and when they get older, they have a bit more respect for their parents and understand them. They can talk to them, communicate them, and you don't feel there's a distance, there's a gap between you.
Okay, Jazakallah. So, Shabazz, I mean, let me, just before, you comment on what Amber said as well, actually, but let me throw something out there as well, which is, when it comes to relating to kids, Amber touched on it just now, which is maybe one of the problems for some of the parents, especially the parents that, our parents, for example, are from Pakistan, maybe India, those kind of places. So, is one problem the fact that maybe their background, hobbies, interests, etc., upbringing is different? Maybe even in many cases the language, because the kids actually grow up and they're fluent in English, right? And then maybe they're not fluent in Punjabi or Bengali, whatever the language is. Do you have anything to say on that? Do you think that it potentially is a problem sometimes?
I think potentially it could be a problem, because they don't end up being your children. They're more like your carers. They often help you with speaking to people in English.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to grips of certain aspects of the culture in this country. Just going back on Amber's point,
Right.
It's a very good point. He raised some good questions there. I think it's easy to say when the children are young, but when they get a bit older, that's when the challenges arise. So a father who, say, for argument's sake, has come from Pakistan and come to work in this country and has settled in this country now, has a 16, 17-year-old son, I think that relationship is perhaps more challenging than, say, a daughter who's 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I think culturally,
Mm-hmm.
we're probably better with dealing with the 5, 10-year-old, because there's not much emotional attachment involved.
Right.
As soon as they get to a certain age, say 17, 18,
Yeah.
we sort of come out of our comfort zone, because there's issues there that we're not comfortable talking about.
And that's the thing. So part of the issue being able to relate to your parents, I think, is having the open discussion. Let's face it, it's not always easy. Okay, I mean, I can relate to my parents, and there's been communication breakdown enough times, and I won't give any deep examples. Suffice to say, when I was very young, the chapli was involved a few times, and for all of you out there who understand the word chapli, I don't need to say anything more. I've still got the bruises to prove it. But what I wanted to pick up on what you just said, Shabazz, and Amber mentioned it, is, okay, you're saying when they're getting older, so let's take the 16-year-old example, right? Somebody 16-year-old, the kind of concerns and questions they're going to have are going to vary from the example that Amber gave when they're very young as well. 4 or 5, they hate school, for example, different environment. So give me an example, Amber. I mean, things like, for example, kids asking questions about birthday parties, Christmas, why can't I be involved? Is that the kind of thing you've got in mind, and is that something that you've experienced with your kids, or even other kids that you know of?
Well, my son goes to a Catholic school.
Right.
And he's always asked me, Dad, why do they pray like this, or why can't we do that?
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, Dad, I said, well, you could pray with them, but you don't have to pray the way they pray. You could pray what you say. When they say Amen, you say Ameen. So when they go through the crucifix with you, you go Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So this is just teaching the kids the basic side of it to make it have a better understanding for them, but then saying to them, this is what we believe in, that's what they believe in, and that's when the kids are okay. So they do this, not saying to them they're in the wrong, and they're seeing completely. I think it's wrong to say to children that age, this is wrong.
Yeah.
But just make sure the most important thing shown to them is the importance of your religion, what the religion means to you, and give them the understanding in them. Again, just touching back onto Shabaz's subject, we mentioned it briefly before, but what I said before. A child, you need to nurture them from the beginning.
Yeah.
You need. If you like, when you plant a seed in the earth, you feed it, you water it, sunshine. It's the same with a child as well.
Sure.
If you come to a situation where you haven't got a proper relationship with your child from the day they're born until they're 16, there's no hope in how you're going to have a relationship at the age of 16 and 18.
Right.
They're individual people now. So if you're there from the beginning from them, and you teach them the basics, teach them the ropes, as I say, inshallah, as they get older, they're going to have a link with you.
Yep.
You'll be a mate for life, and then naturally that relationship with yourself with your father or your mother will stay there to the end.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's an important process. But I think we should look at the whole situation as well, where it's not a major issue. It is a major issue, and it isn't a major issue.
Right.
Because generally in the Muslim community, predominantly in the Pakistani community, the children stay with their parents. So when they do get older, they are there for them through thick and thin. So in that sense, it isn't. But I think just the communication side of it, understanding what your child's going through, that's the biggest problem.
That's why we're kind of raising it as a big challenge. And maybe the first thing we're discussing is you need to have the relationship with the kids, because once you've got the relationship, through thick and thin, you can solve a lot of the other challenges that we come on to in some of the other issues. One thing I'm kind of slightly disagreeing. I'm not sure you meant it as you said it, Armand, so it depends on the context. But you said about not saying something's wrong. I mean, I think you need to tell kids if something's wrong, but I think the point you're trying to make probably is you don't just leave it at that and say it's wrong. Rather, you explain why something's wrong. Exactly, you've got to explain it to them so they, even though they're very young, they start to build up their understanding. Whereas I think you're right, it's very common, certainly amongst our parents, is to say you can't do that. I say it's wrong, forbidden, but you don't explain why, and it leaves the kids very confused.
No, explanation absolutely is definitely there. It's not a situation telling you can't say to the child this is not right, this is wrong, or this is not wrong.
Yeah.
But explanation is definitely.
It is, and actually, funny enough, I think one of the problems actually on this issue relating to the kids being the challenge is the issue of the secondary challenge, if you like, is how do you then do the explanation? Because I wonder whether some parents struggle to explain it. I mean, you look at kids anyway, it's why when they're very young, okay? They're asking why and everything. So obviously, maybe you've got to pick and choose your fights here, but on some things, maybe parents, they don't feel comfortable, because how do you explain to somebody who's 5, 6, 7 about things like Christmas, things like birthday parties, or whatever? Well, just two examples I'm giving. There's a lot more than that, okay? And in the society that kids are growing up now, you would argue, and maybe we'll touch on it a bit later, that kind of age of innocence is going as well. So things that kids are being exposed to a lot more stuff. So that's another question, and maybe if you're listening at home, inshallah, you want to get involved, if you've got something to say, do get in touch with us as well. Give us what your thinking is. But I won't dwell on that. I want to come to the second thing. Because I'm fairly certain from speaking to people, alhamdulillah, brothers, sisters, their parents, they've got kids, they worry about their identity. They really worry about the identity, because, let's face it, a lot of the children now, as they're getting older especially, they're raised here, but they're coming from an Asian background, okay, so they may be the second generation, third generation here, but they know that originally their parents are from Pakistan or India, wherever it is, okay, and they're confused, okay, because they kind of feel trapped between cultures. What can't we adopt from living here in the UK and the society around us? How do we handle all these different traditions that people have exported and brought back here with them from Pakistan, etc.? So they're not sure where they fit, and I think more importantly, they're not sure what their identity should be. Is that a valid concern that parents have?
I think it's definitely a valid concern. It's probably the biggest challenge that's facing parents and, say, individuals that are being brought up in this country now. How do you marry the fact that a child who's 6, 7 has gone to the same schools as other people in their area, but we have a couple of days off to eat, and they go to school. But I agree with Amber, you've got to teach them from a young age, but there's going to be times where the father and the mother aren't there, and they're left there to their own vices. And sadly, we are seeing this now. It is the time of innocence.
Yeah.
Children is slowly decreasing, and they're growing up a lot quicker.
Okay. Well, just before Amber's going to come in here, I know because he's itching to get in again, man. I'll tell you what, I need a fence here between me and Amber because he's gonna land me one otherwise. But I'm sorry for butting Amber. But you come in a second. What I wanted to say on the because a lot of things here we're going to be jumping around like we always do when we pick on the topic, right? But identity, what I wanted to say specifically is identity, and because there's confusion even about what we mean by that, right? So I don't think identity is the issue of whether, for example, superficial things, right? So your favorite food, right? So whether you like fish and chips, because the Gaudy love fish and chips, and I'm raised here and I prefer that to my traditional curry, or whether you wear, let's say, jeans and trousers instead of the traditional salwar kameez, that for me, that's quite superficial. I think for me, identity really is understanding your values. And I think that's what sets you apart from everybody else. And I'm not sure that A, the parents really get that, and maybe B, the kids maybe don't understand that. Is that a fair point?
Excuse me.
Have your cough, don't worry. It's
Sorry.
I've got a cough sweet somewhere.
Identity in okay. Just touching back to one, two little things before I conclude this.
Yeah, sure.
I think parents, if you're from Pakistan and you come over here, they found it very hard to get adjusted to the culture side of it.
Okay.
And they tried to make it out like we're living in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
The thinking mentality of children will be like ways in Pakistan. And I think in that sense, if a lot of the children will go through the education system here, obviously the Western side, how they actually go through the education, the thinking slightly changed. I'm not saying it was, the thinking was slightly different compared to people in Pakistan.
Right.
And I've eventually parents are coming to terms now, thinking, do you know what, we're actually going to stay here now.
Yep.
We're here for the long haul. We need to understand more. I think understanding is the biggest problem we had. We never had understanding because people always think we've got to go home. We're not going to be here that long, vice versa. But now we all set here. It's a setting stool. We build up. We've got our houses here. We've got our work here. We've got a family here. And if children are born here, this is their country. This is what they know.
Correct.
And then secondary comes their parents' home.
Okay.
Identity. We have got a slight identity crisis, but then it comes from down to the parents. Okay, and touching about what Shabazz was saying earlier, children need to be on their own sometime to make their own decision, make their mistakes. But you as a parent are there to build the bridges for them to get ready for the big show.
All right.
So basically, when they go to university and colleges on their own, when they're going to work, they've got all the necessary tools from the teacher, from the parents, to give them the understanding, who they are, what they need to expect in life, the do's and the don'ts, and the good and the bad and the ugly, as they say.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
and so everything was going to happen. That's the parents' job.
Right.
Once they come to a certain age, then they will go into open world.
Yeah.
And then find, and they can actually, inshallah, from there progress from there.
Yeah.
We're individuals. We're always going to make mistakes. We're all going to actually get into few desires or something that's happening in the Western world. I think we've got to be part of it as well. And a lot of people do fall into a trap, but people always come back as well. But at the end of it, because they had the necessary tools at the beginning to find who they are, and if you don't get them, teach them at the beginning, and let them know exactly what they are, and give them the freedom of everything, and not teach them to answer all the questions when they were younger, well, then they say to you, well, Dad, you never told me that.
There's got to be those boundaries there.
Yeah, I think
but
so.
there always going to be boundaries, but the boundaries are going to be there when the parents teaching, well, this you can't, this is what you can't do. Yeah.
But I think that's the point. That's the point, because if we're saying that one of the challenges for parents is making sure the kids come up with have the right identity. What is the right identity? We said it's to do with values, and it's Islamic values at the end of the day. Let's be honest, because we all agree on that, inshallah.
Absolutely.
So we've got kids, we want them to come up to have the Islamic identity. And that leads nicely to what you said, which is that you then, the next challenge to that is, how do I then raise the kids with a solid, a decent, basic understanding of the deen, okay? And exactly that point on, but right and wrong, okay? So they can judge themselves, especially when they kind of fly the nest, right? So they're getting older, they're more independent. You don't necessarily see what's happening when they've gone to university or whatever. But inshallah, if you've given them that kind of reference point and basic understanding of the deen as a minimum, then they can make that decision between what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do. So that, I think, is a big thing for parents, is raising them correctly in the right identity, the Islamic identity. Ahmed, you wanted to come in.
Okay. If you look at the whole picture, every parent's going to be different. Some people are going to be educated, whether it is in studies or whether it's in religious side of it. A lot of people are going to be very uneducated and illiterate. And when it comes to Islam side of it, they don't know their namaz. they don't know how to read the Quran. So for those parents, it's always going to be difficult how to, and they're going to try and push their children to do.
Educated or not educated, everyone knows what's right and what's wrong.
No. Can I finish before you make a comment?
It's getting heated in the studios.
The reason I'm saying that, when it comes to the deen side of it, we're talking about deen now, because we can tell you can tell your parents can tell you this is right, this is wrong. But when it comes to deen side of it, if your parents don't know, the parents always look for the simplest option, which will be the masjid. And if your masjid hasn't got the proper setup, then it's a problem. Because parents sometimes, the easiest option is send them to the masjid. Inshallah, they will teach the deen, the namaz, the Quran, everything. Hopefully, inshallah, from there, they will learn about everything they need to know. Then when it comes to the living side of it, from right from wrong, they can teach them. But unfortunately, our masjids are not clued up as they should be. They should be our centre of excellences, but they're not.
That's a sweeping statement.
Not saying all are. There are a lot of masjids which are, but unfortunately, and I'll probably say from Oxford's side of it, they're not.
Okay.
And I like to make my statements, and I like to be clear.
Well, if you're listening in Oxford, you want to get involved, especially if you're part of a mosque, feel free to come on and grill Ahmed. But this is an opinion from the pundits.
This is no joke. This is important. This
is an important point.
Part of life.
Sure.
And the times we've been here since the country, since the 50s, mashallah, we built ourselves. But now we need to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And it should have been quite a while ago. It's taken our time, but inshallah, we need to do it now.
Oh, that's okay. I agree with that. That's a separate.
This will help.
Yeah, inshallah.
Up your children
I think and it's good because that's one of the things that we wanted to raise. Inshallah, was to say, and Shabaz's valid point as well. I think it's if you've got the understanding, then obviously you should be bringing up the kids. But we do look at in our community that the masjid is the focal point. So when the kids come back from school, for example, they go to the masjid for the dini education, right? So the dunya education at school, dini education. And I agree with you. There's some issues that we need to raise. Maybe that's a topic for another show. And a different show every time. But it's a valid point. So my issue, really, the conclusion from that will be, because that's a challenge, right? Raising your kids in Islamic education, it would be probably to say that don't just outsource it to the mosque, right? It's more than that, because you have a responsibility. And if you don't know, surely you as a parent should be making a bit of an effort. I mean, it's a difficult thing to do, work, everything else, but surely you should be making an effort to learn yourself so that you can create the atmosphere at home or when you're with the kids. Yeah?
Just give you an example. I didn't have in that sense of it, going to the masjid, learning side of it, Islam, so I wasn't really clued up. I'll be honest with you.
Right.
But for my side of it, I made that choice of, you know what, I need to get the best I can for my child or my children, to get the best education in the deen, and also the other side of it as well, and the discipline side of it. That's my duty. But sometimes people do take the easy option. I'm not saying everything is blamed to the mosque side of it.
Of course.
But I think we just need to take a bit more initiative and get up thinking, if we can't do it, let's find out how we can prove it. Or let's try and improve myself. If I can prove myself, that I can teach my kids.
Okay. All right, well, let's circle back to the mosque discussion, because we've got a few things to press on with now, but I think that'll kind of raise its head again, inshallah. Another challenge, another concern you're going to have as a parent is, can the kids relate to the concept of a family unit? Why I say that, because if you look at the wider society, and so this is maybe more of an issue for us from a Muslim perspective, is people complaining about family values, the breakdown of the family unit, etc., and maybe because of our background, Islamically, alhamdulillah, maybe some of the traditions as well, we tend to try and be closer. So concern will be, if you've got more than one child, can they relate to each other and maintain the bond? The brother-sister bond, sister-sister, brother, as they're getting older, is there going to be friction? Are they going to drift away from each other? So you, as a parent, you want to see them stay close together, inshallah. And linked to that, before you guys come in with the comments and your opinions, is the wider family unit, isn't it? So let's face it, you've got cousins, extended family, etc. Now, a lot of us are going to have cousins here. A lot of us have definitely got, the unknown type of cousins in Pakistan that we go and see every 5, 10, 11 years, whatever it is, And our parents, and parents generally, would have a concern, how well do the children know their cousins, their grandparents, their uncles and aunties or whatever? That's a concern as well. So I'd say that is something that a lot of parents think about. I mean, I give my example, you guys can relate to this. If you're listening, you probably can as well. When you're younger, you go back to Pakistan. Actually, even when you're a bit older, you go back to Pakistan, and you can sit there on the manji. Alright, and alhamdulillah, it's fantastic to be back, and they're bringing the tea, and it's great, and you're being treated like a superstar. And then countless uncles and amasiya and, people come, and they'll pat you on the head, and they'll ask how you are. And let's be honest here, and if you're listening, and be honest, how many of them do you really recognize and know? I mean, if I'm honest, probably 70% to 80%, I don't know. Okay, I forget, and especially because the visit is so long. Easier now as you're older and you get used to it, isn't it? So that is a concern for a parent, surely, that their kids should be able to connect with the wider family.
I agree completely. Going on, I don't know, it's a challenge again. If you've got one or two kids,
All right.
because there's less of you,
Mm-hmm.
connect together,
Yeah.
they bond quite well. I'm not saying that's always the case, but generally, you should get on if there's only two of you.
Right. And a big smile there, so you're not sure about that. Right, yeah. Odds on they will, yeah?
But with the extended family, again, if you've got a lot of cousins
Mm-hmm.
who will live closer to you and you're all of the same generation, same age, generally you will get on if you go to the same school,
Mhm.
go to the mosque together.
Yeah.
But then the caveat is the extended family. Like you said, we generally go back to Pakistan, say every 5
Yeah.
years. It's very difficult to maintain a relationship with these cousins,
Yeah.
these uncles. You only see them every couple of years. But then nowadays we have the good old invention of Skype.
Yeah.
So we can communicate and get to know these cousins a bit more now.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, so here's one, and I know this is going to be one that Mr. Amber Ghulam is definitely going to have an opinion on, and so is Shabazz. Because how do you as a parent bridge that gap, right? Okay, so I mean, Shabazz mentioned Skype. The kids of the Skype generation, actually, you'd be surprised how many of your cousins now sitting there downtown Dina, Jilem, wherever it is, in the middle of the pain, they've got access to the internet, right? So they're uploading, actually, they're probably uploading more stuff to the YouTubes and the Facebooks as well than I have, I'm honest with you. And I was surprised, only about a month ago, when my cousins in Pakistan were doing a quick search for clips of the village, new photos and stuff, and he was on it, and I thought, subhanAllah, I'm the dinosaur, right? It's very scary, right? So there is that side of it. But look, let's look at it from the parents' point of view. Up until now, how do parents normally bridge it? And I'd say a couple of things. One thing is, they try and take the kids back. You take them back to Pakistan. You take them back to try and maintain at least some kind of link, especially if you've got the kids' grandparents are there. Sorry, so you want that. The second thing, and here's the kind of interesting one, is shadi. Isn't it right? Let's maintain a link with the wider family who happen to be in Pakistan. So we will get our son or daughter. And that's one of the reasons, not the only one. And I don't want to get into a big discussion of studio guys and Shadi, because that's something that's definitely a topic in itself. But is that a fair point? Because would some parents have that? They would have that concern, or would they use that avenue? Okay, because look, it brings the family together and keeps it within the family type scenario. Is that true? I mean, whoever wants to go first.
Right. Okay. Well, definitely, 100%.
Yes, get it off your chest, Amber. Come on, let's.
Well, I'm married. My wife's from Pakistan,
Alhamdulillah.
so I'm from here. So the wife always wants to have some kind of link with her side of the family, her parents,
Yeah.
and her brothers and sisters, so
Mhm.
the children can be contact with their mummy and Marcia. There's always a question on marriage side, and sometimes even about 2-3 years ago, and my son's 8 by the way, and they was always mentioning, oh, Buddy Olsen, and we're going to probably sort something out. And I said to him, I don't think so at the moment. My son is only 5 years old. So there always that conversation. Of course, I think they like to keep it, that relationship closer.
Right.
But especially in the older generation, I think that was a definite fact. And they wanted to keep it within their little circle and keep the family together and make it bigger and to the next level, and like to get integrated married through their cousins and vice versa.
Right.
I think that is changing quite a lot now.
Sure.
But I think the general side of it is all about, especially in Pakistan, is that link.
Sure.
And it's always their Salam Dua, and there's always something behind it.
Right. Okay.
And it is, and generally, and 9 times out of 10, it's always marriage.
So I knew you'd get excited about this topic. So we're gonna cut. Let's not get into detail on the marriage. But the point I wanted to make actually from that is that we're giving the example about one concern is maintaining link with your wider family. But what it leads to is this point. It's another concern surely for parents about, forget the Pakistan side and where they get married from and whatever, actually getting the kids married, isn't it? When they get to that age, surely as a parent you're worried about it, and certainly in our community they'll say it's a farz, it's obligation, responsibility, right? But whatever the words are. So I think any parent anywhere would relate to the fact that you do want the right husband, the right wife and the right in-laws actually for your kids. Yeah.
I think when you go back to your question regarding individuals, how we grow up as family. So, mashallah, I'm from a family of 9, 5 sisters and 3 brothers,
Mashallah.
as we grow up, obviously you have some things in common, you do things together. As you get older, people go to slightly different directions. Obviously you're always going to have that feel for your brothers and sisters, whether you're close or not, because you're going to be close to certain more brothers and the other one, vice versa.
Okay.
Not because you don't like them.
It's a natural thing, right?
It's a natural
Okay.
thing, yeah. But if something goes wrong, if your brother gets ill or sister gets ill, you're naturally going to think, you know what, that's my brother, that's my sister, that's my blood. So that link would never change.
Right.
That would never change. Obviously, when you get married and have your own children, family, things do change a little bit, and you probably get mature, more older.
Right.
You might get more deen orientated. You might get to a different direction. You might move the country. You might leave the country. So many things can happen where you're not as close what you used to be.
Of course, yeah.
But if something happens, you're always going to feel it.
Mm.
That feeling would never change.
Inshallah. Okay, Jazakallah. All right, so listen, let's move on to the next couple of points. I'm going to mention this one. If you guys want to particularly give an opinion, feel free to do that, but we can skim over it, which is, look, as a parent, you want your kids to have a good education. Okay, and I think academic education, do well at school and stuff, and that's got lots of related challenges, because obviously you're looking at the best schools, what you can afford to do in terms of where you can send them, do you consider private, do you consider state, lots of other issues. What I really wanted to do is move on to the next point, and we can come back to education if we need to, which is it's a worry for parents in terms of protecting your kids from some of the influences in society. And the example I wanted to give was materialism, right? If you're at school, you want to get, as you're growing up, you want to get the latest brands. You want the best gear, the best train. I mean, my days, a long time ago, this will show you again. It was Adidas Trojan and Nike Air Max, I think it was. And the first kids that got that in school, and I thought, man, I've got to have this, right? But obviously, best and when you try and convince your parents, it's not always easy. Capri ski jackets came in, would you believe it? Okay, and I actually wore mine for about 3 years longer than I should have, because it was a tight fit, but it was a fashion thing. And they're expensive. At that time, that was probably about maybe £40-45, which a lot of kids listen to now thinking, this guy, what's going on here? That's nothing. But it was quite a bit of money then, right? So kids have that pressure, the feeling that you've got to keep up with the Joneses, and then you have expectations. So that's surely an issue. How do you deal with those expectations? How do you protect them from this keep up with the Joneses concept, and also the wider concept, which is, what is success? Because when we look at success, we don't link it to materialism, right? Meaning, maybe it's okay to have those things, but success is, you're not who you are. You're not successful based on the amount of wealth you've got. That's like a Western type concept, right? A dunya type concept. You're a millionaire, you've made it. You're a senior manager, whatever, you made it. Really, success, as we said earlier on, was the Islamic identity and worship Allah Azza wa Jalla, etc. So, guys, what do you think? How would you protect the kids from that? How would you get the right balance, right? So they can, yes, we know it's halal, you can have the trainers, but at the same time, you want them to have the right kind of mindset, so they're not just chasing after it and just constantly into that kind of stuff, the latest gear, the bling, whatever. How does that work? I mean,
I think as Asian parents, we seem to get sucked into that culture,
right?
Because we do tend to have a materialistic background sometimes.
Okay.
Whether that's from our background in Pakistan, or it may not have been, say, trainers and stuff like that, but I'm sure it was something else. It was in Pakistan to have the best horse, or
Right.
the most land, or something like that.
Yeah.
Biggest house.
Biggest house. Biggest goatee.
Yeah.
That's the one, isn't it? Okay.
Tortilla.
You're always going to get that pressure in schools for kids,
Mm.
especially because it's part of the culture that
It is, isn't it? And it's becoming more.
it's more and more.
Becoming more.
Now, with us, like I said, it's trainers, maybe the best cricket bat. Now it's the best PSP or the
Yeah.
Nintendo DS. And
But is that a bad thing? Sorry to cut you, Shabazz. I mean, let's look at it the other way, devil's advocate. Is it a bad thing? Because these things, surely they're allowed anyway, right? So if the kids want the Xbox 3, whatever it is, sorry, I'm out of touch, 360, and then the next version, whatever, is that an issue? I mean, is that a problem for a parent? Is that a challenge? Or are we just making...
it's not haram, but one would hope it isn't haram.
Sure.
You need to have that. I think there's children out there that haven't got,
Mm-hmm.
say, shoes or clothes, and if I bought, for example, so I've got 3 kids and each of them wants a PSP.
Right.
That's why I think maybe taking them to Pakistan when they're younger
Right.
to see how kids their age,
Yeah.
how they're getting
Yeah.
by in life.
Which is a fair point, although so it's completely off the point, but it's occurred to me now. You just hold that thought, Shabazz, inshallah. You're right. If you went, let's say you went to Pakistan, you would see the poverty and stuff. Flip side is, give my own story. I go to Pakistan, and believe me, my cousins have got better mobile phones than I've got, right? They look at mine and think, you're from Valencia, you're from UK, London, wherever it is, and you're carrying this brick. So that doesn't always hold true, but generally it does. I take your point. Oh, sorry, carry on. Sorry, I didn't want to butt in, but it just came to our mind.
It's difficult thing to mix in with, because on the one side you want them to have the best things,
Yeah.
you want them to have all the tools, you don't want them to be singled out, bullied, for not having the best things.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you want them to be humble, materialistic.
So isn't it then, Amber, what we discussed at the beginning about the upbringing, the mindset, the education? Because obviously, let's take Shabaz's example here. The kids want the latest PSP, they want the latest trainers, whatever. It's halal, alhamdulillah, inshallah, it's not a problem. But in their mind, what you're building is the right reason for wanting that. You know, it's not just celebrity craze or whatever. And more importantly, for example, you could buy all three. Let's say you got 3 kids and they all want the PSP. But you could buy one because you got the PSP and then teach them concept of sharing and getting on the brother and sister. So is that the best solution, or the only real solution is how you educate them?
Oh, yeah, it's all about how you educate them and how you manage it as well, and tell them when they can have it and why they shouldn't have it, or they can make them understand if you can't afford it, say we can't afford it, and explain probably bits and pieces in life, like the poverty in back home or somewhere else. Just touching base on regarding schools and stuff. In challenges in life for me, it's been for my son to go to a Catholic school, and the question's always been thrown to me: why would you want to send your son to a Catholic school?
Right.
And they're strict in their way. They go through the whole facilities and vice versa. And I said, well, it's a challenge, it's a test for my son as well, because now he's at a younger age, and he's at a test level now, so that's a test for him.
Sure.
So, but my job is to make him understand why we do this and why we don't do that.
Okay.
So, in that sense of it, is we will have that bit of education for him. Inshallah, from there he can actually learn from it, and that will be there for the rest of his life. But at the same time, he can respect everybody else's religion as well. Going back to the other points now. Materialistic is the biggest thing in every culture and every religion, every problem you're going to have. Even there in Islam side of it, we don't have that side of it, but it's there, it's in the world. It's like money. Money's there, and we can't change anything from that. The only thing is you can do is actually trying to balance it out, and try rewarding your children instead of giving it to them. And say if you do well in school, not a bit of bribery, but it's you got to earn it. Yeah, positive side of it. A bit of say to them, look, if you do well at school, and if you do this, and we'll look at buying that for you,
right,
if you can afford it. But at the same time, a bit of explanation, why can't you have everything? But kids are kids in the day.
Yeah.
They're not going to understand that, but you can try and understand it the light way as possible.
You try and build that mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Jazakallah. Okay, so challenges, worries, concerns, issues that face parents raising kids, specifically here in the West. That's what we're discussing, inshallah. You're welcome to join us. 95.6 FM, the Armchair Punditz, having the chin wag as we normally do, inshallah. And you can get involved if you've got anything that you want to get off your chest, anything that we've said that you agree with, disagree with, that you think makes sense, doesn't make sense. We'd love to hear from you, and the best way of doing that is give us a call. Inshallah, we won't have any problems today, inshallah, with the studio line, and that line is 01189 758 300. Better still, if you prefer the text, inshallah, and you've got those free texts still there in your package plan, why not use them? 07909 567 527. That's 07909 567 527. So you're listening to us, inshallah, 95.6, also going out live on the web, 3Ws 1ummahfm.co.uk. Listen, we just as we're discussing this, inshallah, one thing linked to that, when you look at kids, the school environment, we're talking about this whole kind of thing about materialism and keep up with the latest stuff and the bling and whatever. Surely another concern for you as a parent, right, is going to be the peer pressure, right? Some of the bad habits. Let's look, because we're looking at a positive habit, you don't mind. You want them to get a positive habit. Bad habit, right? So maybe if they're in with the wrong friends, the whole thing about smoking, etc. So I guess it's another concern for you as a parent, the type of company they're keeping, the type of friends they have. Yeah, I mean, that must be an issue. Okay, who they hang around with. And also, I think, again, looking at it from a school point of view, is sometimes we have this thinking, I feel anyway, my opinion would be that you send the kids off to school, right? And there's a bit of a naive thinking, maybe it's less so now, that, okay, they're going there, it's a good environment. Okay, they're learning their maths and they're learning their English and they're learning their science and all the rest of it, and inshallah they'll be the doctor and the engineer, whatever. And what we forget is actually the academic side of it is quite minimal in a way. Now, you could be there from 9 to 3 or whatever it is, and yeah, you're doing your 50 minutes or 40-minute lessons, but the biggest teaching in school is the whole environment. It's everything else that goes on, right? It's all the kind of the mates that you've got, the other stuff that happens. Is that something maybe parents don't always recognize the effect that has, or the influence that has? Do they appreciate the effect of the friends that their kids are keeping? Do they realize that that's having a massive impact on them as well, and developing their personality?
I think something like that's always been a problem where parents do worry, are concerned about, and the people to hang around with, especially if they come home and their attitudes start changing, they're getting a bit they're not listening anymore,
right? They're
getting a bit lippy, and you think, hold on a second, you weren't like that before,
right?
And suddenly they got a new group of friends, and obviously always question about, don't hang around with them.
Yeah.
And that question always arises. The problem you're going to have is wherever you go, wherever school you go to, whether you go to Islamic school,
yeah,
or Western school, you're going to get the same situation as well. Hopefully, in the inside of it,
yeah,
you would think, but at the same time, nothing's going to be. Wherever you go, you're always going to have issues. But the thing is, life is a challenge.
Yeah,
you can't eliminate these problems. These problems are always going to be there. Are always going to testing us all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's very philosophical.
All you can do is make your child to be prepared for it, and hopefully, inshallah, you can give them the best knowledge, and hopefully from there, they can make the right choices. Sometimes they need to make the mistakes to learn from it. Because if we don't make the mistake, then we never learn from it. So it's one of the situations, making them prepared for it, and then inshallah, if they do make the mistake, hopefully it's a minor one, and they could recover from that and become a better person.
Your role as a parent is to be there to make that mistake, so you can hopefully help them get over them.
Yeah.
Hopefully show the learnings as well.
Yeah, and so one of the things then, guys, is obviously you being very philosophical, Umber, that actually, the things will always exist and whatever, and that's right, these challenges always exist, inshallah. Part of the thing, and one of the reasons that we're kind of chewing it over is, the first step is find out what are those challenges. If you haven't got a clue what some of the challenges are that you should be aware of as a parent, then it's a problem, isn't it? So we've talked about a few today, inshallah. This was one in terms of the friends, because they have an impact, isn't it? Peer pressure, exactly. Okay, let's widen that slightly now, and give me your opinion on this, because if you look at other influences, right, so beyond the friends, other influences to do with the society, and I'm thinking here things like, potentially, right, TV programs, films, what can you watch safely these days, right? Even comedy, you go back to the old days, you sit there and you're sitting there, mum and dad, and you're watching Dad's Army or whatever it was, and it's not, Mr. Bean, right? And it's relatively okay and whatever. Now you look at some of the comedy and the amount of cursing and innuendo, whatever, is it's an issue. And that same issue applies to things like some of the films coming out, places like Hollywood. Internet is a major thing. All the kids now, they're online, social networking, whatever. How do you patrol that? And what's going on the internet? Mobile phones, obviously, you're using that now. I'd even mention here, and we'll open this discussion up now, computer games. All right, and I'm thinking about, because people have different opinions on it, and you can argue that, okay, it doesn't really have an effect on the kids, but you can still send out a message in a computer game. You can certainly affect somebody who's young and impressionable. I'm thinking about games that, let's take some of the shoot-em-ups. My days was Doom 2, and I wasted a lot of time that I should have been studying, playing Doom 2 or whatever it was on the PC, and failing and using all the cheats. I can remember some of the cheats, actually. I won't shout them out on air, but they imprinted in my brain from all the hours of playing. You can probably remember as well, yeah, and that was, I've got to finish this game, do this. Grand Theft Auto caused a lot of controversy when it came out because of the whole concept behind it. These things I'm talking about, does that ring a bell with you guys as parents, and you're worried about protecting your kids from these, or how you deal with it? Right.
Whether it's, for example, say if we don't get them that game, I'm sure they'll ask someone else who will get them that game.
Right.
I think they do have an effect, at least, because if it's an 18, there's a reason why it's
right.
certificate 18.
Sure.
But again, how you can protect them from it, say it's wrong, the reason why it's wrong, and then hopefully they'll make the right choice.
So even on that, Shabazz, right, I'd agree with you that, and if there's 18 is a reason why it's 18, but I'd say that we probably need to be even more careful, because I think that's the point that you're probably making as well, is look, it's because these agencies nowadays, they can slap on a 12 or 15, But when you're a parent and you're probably watching that film, you're thinking, no, that ain't 15, man. That should be something else, right? It's because they may be a bit more liberal and whatever. Whereas from our perspective, the way that you want to bring up the kids, you want to be very careful what they're watching on some of these Hollywood films and Bollywood and all the rest of it. So, how would you guys deal with some of these things? Because, like you said, they're there, and you ain't going to really stop the kids from watching TV. How do you patrol that?
Well, firstly, if you say to your kid, you can't do this, you can't do that, they want to know why. You tell them the reasons why, but they're still going to be keen and suspicious. Why is Dad said I can't smoke? Why can't I watch that? Why is that? And there's more likely they will do it.
Okay.
So I think it's just trying to implement these things little by little, small dosage. It's like my son said to me 2 years ago, "Are you wanting a PlayStation?" And I said to him, "No." He said, "My cousin's got it. How can I can't have one?"
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's playing the games there, so he'll go there, or not on a regular basis, but he'll go there and play the games there. So whatever effects I'm trying to protect from there, he's going to see it there anyway. So wherever you look at it, they're always going to have that issue where whether you protect them from it, there are going to be some other avenues they're going to see it.
Yeah.
But I think you need to imply it small dosage at a time and let them know why you shouldn't be doing this. This is right from wrong.
Yeah.
But nowadays, if you look at everywhere, internet, TV,
it's difficult, isn't it?
news, there's violence, and you walk down the street, someone's swearing, someone's drunk, this is happening, people getting shot on the street, fights, everything's in your face anyway.
No, but that's the challenge. The challenge, it's not, I think the point is it's a difficult one, it's a challenge. The issue is, how do you minimise it? Because I think that there probably are some parents out there that don't realise the magnitude or the effect that it has, or they probably just think, because we can't sort it out, let's just wash our hands of it, and hopefully, inshallah kids will turn out alright, whereas they don't appreciate the damage it is having if you're watching some of these, I don't know, even stand-up comedy, but if it's uncensored, and you're not the filter, and the kids are just watching it, they're going to learn all kinds of stuff, bad habits, bad swear words, whatever.
You remember, from my experience, I've got an 8-year-old son. Obviously, as they get older, they become more challenging. When they're younger, they listen a lot more. When they start to get older, they think they know a lot more. Yeah. Especially when they start to read and write, and they can do things on the computer and vice versa, or they know something you may not know, sort of thing. Yeah, try to catch you out.
Thanks for that, Google, by the way, because it's really...
So, all these things that happen, then when they come a bit challenging, because every year it gets past, they get challenged, they get worse and worse and worse. But like I said, it's always having a little balance. And for my side, it's having a balance. And at the end of the day, you could be perfect, you can think you could do everything the perfect, but you never know until they grow up. I think at the end of the day, you can lock them up in a room till they're 18. They'll probably turn out worse as well. So you don't physically know. You can't. It's all about. I think it's all about thinking from your experiences.
Common sense. Yeah.
Common sense. And be at the same time as well. I think a bit of lard, a bit of love and affection with the kid does help as well. And I think that's the most important. If the kid knows you're doing something because you love them, not you're always angry and shouting at them, because shouting just is anger. It's violence. And that's what the kids senses. When there's a bit of hugs, a bit of cuddles, and so that's what and you explain to them in a loving way, and the kids understand it more.
Okay.
Inshallah, from there we could take it. But there's there's
never an easy solution to any of these things, right?
Everybody's got a different way of bringing the child up.
Yeah.
But there's always avenues to help us make it better. Obviously, society, places where we can go, like community centres, and places where we can go get some advice. Because sometimes it's new for someone. They're their first child. They don't know how to bring them up. Maybe they had a rough childhood. Maybe they had a good one. They're trying that way and it's not working. Because every child's going to be different. Boys and girls are different as well.
They are different, and that's something we'll come on to, inshallah, just in a few minutes' time. But I go back to it. I think the first thing is recognition that adds a problem, right? And I mean, you think about maybe our youth, actually, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this as well. When you're at home, when you're younger, and you're sitting there watching the television, and that in those days, by the way, as well, 4 channels, none of the hundreds of channels now. There wasn't the internet or whatever, right? But you're sitting there watching the TV, and Dad's been sitting there, and he's come back from work, hard day, and he's whacked on BBC News, whatever it is, and after that, something else starts, and it's past the kind of watershed of 9:30, whatever it is. And you're sitting there thinking, wow, I'm watching TV here, you got my glass of milk or Coca-Cola or whatever it was. And then something dodgy, isn't it? The advert, something dodgy in that program, and there's a frantic scramble for the control, you know, and very embarrassing. And if you're watching on your own, it's bad enough. When you've got parents there, it's kind of awkward, and everyone's thinking the same thing, but you're blushing and you're trying to ignore it and talk about something else. We've all been there. Let's face it, that example, we've all been there, right? But and sorry, Shabazz, my point is to contrast that, because there are actually situations I know for a fact, okay, out there, whether it's here or even you go back to Pakistan and stuff, and all the cable and stuff that exists there, where families can sit there, and I'm talking even your buzurgs sitting there and they're watching all kinds, because it's Bollywood. That's alright, it's Apna, man. It's Apna Zaban, so it's not a problem all of a sudden, because it's not the Gore. And some of the stuff in those films, I'll be honest with you, subhanAllah, man, it is just, it's no different. It's the same concepts, and they're watching it. So for me, that's saying you don't even recognize it as an issue. You don't see the effect it's having on the kids.
Well, if you look at this, if you go back to Pakistan, say if you go to a normal, average village, there's no TV, there's no radio.
Well, there's no electricity, so if you had the TV, had the TV radio.
If they haven't got this facility, these kids sometimes turn out really, really bad.
Yeah.
And they know from some certain sexual activities, vice versa, before they even physically see on TV. But it's there. So if it can happen in Pakistan, in those type of villages, and we've got all the facilities available here.
Yeah, okay.
What can I say with that? People will find it's down to your thinking, your mentality, the crowd you hang around with, and vice versa, and how you are as an individual. Once you grow up, I think once you come to a certain age where you know from or you should know right from wrong, but sometimes we don't. And it's when you start coming to your individual person, you don't know what your child is. Once he hits 16, it's coming up from teenage to adulthood. I should lose that link with them, the thinking you might think they have might be completely different. When they're child, you know what they're thinking, you know what they're rebelling against. But when they get to adulthood, that's when they change. But hopefully, once you get childhood in the situation, get the right ingredients. Inshallah, from there they can lead the way.
Okay, Shabazz, did you want to say something on this? Because you were sorry.
Electricity.
Yeah, no, trust me. Been there, exactly. You just try desperate, and it's typical, isn't it? That's the one time when the battery's failing the remote, isn't it? And before that it works perfectly, then you're frantically trying to change the channel. Exactly, to turn it off or to throw something at the TV.
Quick, going back to thinking at the moment, obviously, when we were younger, but a couple of years ago.
A couple of years, inshallah.
We had the luxuries of the latest gear on, or vice versa, and having a big, mashallah, family, sometimes you share clothes with each other. So really, in sense of it, we were quite, not saying we were rich, we were poor, but at the same time, we didn't have the luxury meals what we're having now. And having chawal and chol and where having biryanis every single day, but that used to be luxury once a month. Or every 2 weeks sort of thing. And that kind of thing. We used to have the bare essentials, basics. And now, obviously, it's a lot more difficult, a lot more harder now, because you can have a luxury meal every single day. Sure.
And that all goes back to the upbringing, which is really the key message, I think, is recognizing some of the challenges we're talking about and things we haven't been talking about, and then looking at how you can address them, inshallah. And the big theme here is common sense, is Islam, and so forth. We'll come on to that very quickly at the end, inshallah. 95.6 1 FM you're listening to, inshallah. Challenges facing parents. We've been discussing quite a few. We're going to come into the last 5-10 minutes of the show, inshallah. So there are a couple of things I wanted to throw out there and get Shabazz and Amber to comment on and get their opinion on as well. Let's switch away from protecting the child now from some of the influences, and talk about 2 or 3 key things that I think parents do have a worry, especially when the kids grow up, when they're getting older, in late teens, and they're getting to the age where they're going to get married and so forth. And one of them is, and it's kind of related actually, one of them is the issue of, are the kids going to respect me? Do they respect me? Are they going to respect me as they're getting older and older? And then part of that is, will they look after me in old age? And Amber touched on this right at the beginning of the show, I think, because we know from our backgrounds that as a Muslim family, or even as an Asian family, we tend to stay closer together. It's a very traditional type of thing. So I'd suggest that is an issue, and maybe parents do worry about that sometimes. Are the kids going to kind of kick them into the old people's home, like Gorish, that's what they do, and they're going to do it. These are kind of concerns they have. Are they valid concerns? Have you come across them?
It is valid concerns. I think the home care situations and to elderlies, I can't say the word now.
Spit it out, Amber.
To home, yeah.
Gotcha.
I think it's coming slightly into cause where women or as soon as they get older, they actually the children have sent them to a home. And I think it's coming situation now. Maybe it could be related to the upbringing. It could be something else. Maybe they didn't get on with their parents. Maybe they weren't treated right when they were young, or vice versa. Maybe they got a chip on the shoulder. It could be 101 things. But I think you can see it slightly creeping in now,
Right.
which was quite unknown in the, especially in the Muslim and Asian community.
But not in terms of because that again will be almost a separate discussion in terms of the factors. But would it be something that parents worry? Would you be worried, for example?
I would be worried.
How is that? What's going to happen in 10 years, 20 years? Will the child respect me when they're older? Will they look after me? I think most parents would.
Yeah,
it is something. But then I think it goes back to what Amber was saying. Although it's your child, you should try having a good bond, good relationship with them. So they are, although there's got to be certain parameters there to say, if you do something wrong, you will be told off. But you should be like their friend as well.
Yeah. Okay.
but I think also it evolves around marriage as well. When you get married as well, how much influence your partner plays in your life as well.
Sure. Okay.
They could be a decision factor, saying, "Well, I'm not looking after your mother," or vice versa. That kind of thing. That could play a lot of part in life as well.
Okay, that's a fair point. Now, in some of the things that we talked about, this applies more in some of the challenges that we've discussed than others. But is there a difference between the boys and girls, right? And I mean that if you're a parent, would you be more worried maybe about your daughter and potentially some of the effect, the challenges, the influences we talked about would have than maybe your son?
I would say so.
Right.
I've got a daughter, and
Okay.
I'm very, very worried and scared of what the future may hold.
Sure.
You can only control so much, like we said.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is they go out into the dunya. And
Sure.
just hope.
But what is that, Shabazz? What is that because your perception is that maybe daughters generally are more vulnerable, or because I'd be interested to know that. I mean, I would agree that I think most parents would be more concerned about the daughter. But is it perception? Is there a reason? Are they equally actually influenced?
I think it's regarding the dunya itself. And I think
the nature, right, of what's
the nature,
okay.
the world itself scares you, and I think sometimes the treatment of women,
Sure.
especially in this country as well, sometimes you get it as well. Discrimination, it is a major concern. I think bringing for a daughter when you get old as an elderly, I think there's never concern that the daughter's more closer with the parents.
Yeah.
And she will end up look after. I think that's not a concern. I think the concern is for as a parent, obviously the dunya, society, what will happen. Will we find a good marriage proposal for her? And it's just everything in life. Obviously, you don't want your daughter to go astray. But same with your son as well. But there's always this. You always have that extra little more feeling for your daughter, thinking, well, is she going to do what in this life what you want her to do, sort of thing. And I think there is a bit of you have that feeling in the back of your mind, thinking, I hope everything falls into place, sort of thing.
Okay, so let's finish up with the last challenge here, because we're running out of time very quickly. And this is an interesting one, actually, and I don't want to get into a hukum discussion, right? So I don't want to get into the dalil and the Islamic discussion and different opinions, whatever, because people have different opinions on this, certainly in terms of the reality and what you see. Right? No, let's not. Don't worry, you stay there. We need you guys, both of you, inshallah, to input on this. And that is because you know the reality, right? You got kids. So how do you, when the kids potentially go wrong, when they make a mistake, how do you actually discipline your kids? Right? Because if we talk about discipline, I mentioned it before, right? In the old days, discipline was chapli, right? And my dad had a very thick chapli, right? Which mashallah lasted quite a few years. I know it wasn't Bartol, so it was actually whatever it was. I can tell you the soul on that thing was huge. And if dad's chapli didn't work for whatever reason, or if he wasn't around, mum's hand certainly did the job, right? A couple of slaps and that sort of, that was the kind of, that's the Arpadan discipline that we were used to, right? We grew up, and if you watch some of these comedies, like I remember watching a clip, I think it was Lenny Henry, I think, right? And he was always relating things back to the West Indian community, and his point was exactly the same. In the West Indies, right, they used to none of this messing around. They used to beat you, black and blue, whatever, and that was a kind of a comedy spin on it. But my point is actually a serious point. How do you now, because this is a challenge for you, you have to discipline them, or you have to bring them up right. How do you do that? What kind of things can you use? This
country at the moment is very difficult, so you can't really raise your hand on your child. I think a little bit of a little slap on the backside, vice versa, doesn't do anybody harm.
Gotcha.
We all had it done when we were younger. But for my side, again, from experience side of it, normally I send him to his room, get him to think long and hard what he's done. And normally 9 times out of 10 they come back and say, "Dad, I apologize, I'm sorry, I was wrong." And so that that tends to work. You may maybe take away his PlayStation, so you can't have it for a week, and you're barred from doing this, you're barred from doing that. That's kind of discipline I try to put in, and it has some kind of reflect from that. But I say sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You try different little things. I think taking things away from them, and they realise, hold on, so I can't use that, and they try to think, well, I better be good now, sort of thing.
Right.
But I think the main thing of this discipline side is to make sure that they learn what they've done is wrong. It's all about reflect on and think, oh, okay, I've done this wrong, and now, because every time I notice with my son especially, is also my daughter's still young, 2.5, so she's at the moment not at age yet at the moment to know right from wrong, sort of thing. But when he understands he's done something wrong, and he comes back and says, Dad, I'm sorry, and gives me a hug, sort of thing. I said, look, this is the reason why you've been punished for. You know it, you understand it, don't you? But obviously kids are kids, and sometimes they'll do it again. But eventually, inshallah, it will sink in. But that's what you can do at the moment, really, is just to actually get into in the room, or say, okay, you're not getting a treat today, or vice versa. You're not playing the PlayStation.
Okay.
But be honest, you're quite restricted. You can't just get the baseball bat. Here we go. Yeah.
No, I'm glad to hear you say
exactly.
You get the baseball bat. Go on, Shabazz. Shabazz is shaking his head. Maybe he's got a baseball bat. Oh, subhanallah.
That was a joke.
That was a joke, by the way. Ripping a can of worms on this show. Go on, Shabazz. What did you want to say on that? Did you?
Discipline is difficult, but I think we should start steering away from physical.
Yeah.
Because that's when fear creeps in.
Sure.
And then you lose that relationship with the child.
Yeah.
They say, my dad used to beat me, I don't really want to tell him. This bad or Z bad. I think, like Abba said, reflecting on, say, if they've done something naughty.
Yep.
Do simple little things that take away, sitting on a step where...
City step. Yeah. I've heard that as well.
I think
I'm not sure if beating...
It depends what you cast as being. If you get a whip out or get your belt, that's wrong. If you get sticks out hitting yourself, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And if you start punching, that's wrong. And I think a little slap on the backside
Yeah.
doesn't do anybody any harm. I think the thing is, they need to have a little bit of fear of you, because that's the bond you need to have from a parent. Thinking, you know what, Mum or Dad are going to get angry.
Yeah.
Mum or Dad get angry if I do that. Cause they need to have some kind of fear. If they don't have any fear, then they think, well, do you know what, they could do whatever they want. So there has to be some kind of form of fear inside them. Think, do you know what, if I do that, oh, I'm in trouble, sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, I see that for my son sometimes. Don't tell Dad. Dad's going to get mad, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's that, but it's not a level where he's thinking, you know what, I can't talk to Dad, and I'm not going to sit in the same room as Dad, sort of thing, because Dad's basically going to get angry with me, sort of thing.
Sorry, this might...
No.
Michael Karen.
That's why a lot of, say, people of our generation, maybe older, don't get on so much with their mum or dad. Because,
No. What you got to remember is, I think one is when they come over here, they need Punjabi, Urdu, or whatever language they use from the country they come in. And now your child's born up from here, his first language is probably going to be English. Obviously, you're near tutti booty English, that Punjabi, Urdu sort of thing. And I think it's more down to the Western society and its bit of understanding. I think they're used to how a child is brought up in Pakistan. So they probably thinking, well, the child is brought exactly the same. But they sometimes slightly forget they're not in actually Pakistan, they're in England. That's why they don't get an understanding. And probably the parent as well is because if they brought their child up in a certain way, if they brought up in a certain way in Pakistan where dad is always having to go at them, there's respect all the time, they would bring the child that way. That's how they've been taught.
It's a tough love. Give them some tough love. That's how you bring them up.
Because obviously, because now they come over to England and they're trying to be the child in the same way, it's not working because they got a different education system.
True.
It's slightly different.
Yeah, but true. But that's another discussion, because look, I mean, the flip side of that would be that even in this country, they're very strict. Even the school used to have the cane, right, and discipline or whatever. So that's an interesting discussion, inshallah. Maybe we'll pick up on that in the future. I mean, you can imagine that some of the children are thinking, right, you get the soti at home and you get the soti in the masjid, and how do you avoid the soti? And you used to get it in the school as well back in the days. But that's a different discussion. I mean, I think from what you guys are saying, I take it as kind of, again, it's the common sense mix of kind of rewards and punishments, the kind of gentle threats, the lard biar, all these things, and probably the most important thing being that if the child has done something wrong, that you're explaining to them why they're being disciplined, which is what you guys said, and I think that's perfect.
Yeah,
so they understand why, as opposed to simply just giving them some kind of punishment, however that is. And like I said, we don't want to get into a big discussion about rights and wrongs and how strong the punishment can be or not. We're going to have to wrap up, inshallah. So what I'm going to do is just very quickly not summarized because we've discussed a lot of things, but if there is going to be any kind of nasiya or advice from the pundits, and remember it's the armchair pundits, so we're not your sheikhs, and we're not your proper pundits or experts, but a couple of things inshallah from what we've kind of talked about in the show. So firstly, I think practice what you preach as parents, okay? So because kids learn a massive amount by literally watching their parents. You are, especially when they're very young, you're the role model. So the question really for parents is, what kind of example are you setting? Okay. Secondly, I think you've got to pick the right company, and we talked about that quite a bit because we know that the choice of friends has an influence and effect on the children. Listen to the children's concerns, what's on their minds. Actually sit down and spend that time, inshallah, to understand what they're going through. What's a big thing? Maybe it's not a big thing for you if they've got a question regarding, I don't know, let's just say birthdays or sports or whatever, but it is a big thing for them, inshallah. Certainly, don't switch on just the Bollywood films and the Pakistani dramas and TV to keep them quiet, because that can have a negative effect. Don't just assume school is academic, because it isn't just academic. There's a lot of things that they learn. So if the assumption is, let's just send them to school and it's fine and it'll turn out all right, a lot of times it doesn't turn out all right, and we know that from our community. Simple things. Okay, so we talked about issues like TV and internet. Okay, internet, there's technology available now. You can use a good internet security package, parental control functionality. Do that, because it means you can keep an eye on what they're doing on the internet. I think another thing the guys talked about today was appreciating that the kids are living in a different environment or country compared to their parents. So that definitely has an effect. They're being raised in a different environment. So you as the parents need to really set the expectations accordingly and realize that difference, inshallah. Another advice I think that the pundits mentioned today was getting involved in the community, okay, because strong community, having the mosque do what it needs to be doing, inshallah, that will help you with the children because they're spending time there. And probably the last 2 points that we'll make, inshallah, collectively, above all, I think firstly, emphasize the deen. Okay, that's the thing that all of us have been talking about on and off, but it's the most important thing. Learn ourselves so we can teach the children and keep emphasizing that for them. And the very last point, which kind of underlies overlaps everything, is make time for your kids, inshallah, okay? Because spending time with them, you get to understand them, they get a relationship with you, and you need that strong relationship as they grow up. And actually, if you do that, as the guys have said, when they're younger and more impressionable, inshallah, the fruits of that is something that you will reap later on, inshallah. So I'm going to leave it there. Any final closing remarks from you guys before we wrap up? Anything that you wanted to get off your chest?
That's it.
Just
communication. Very important in life, and inshallah, that will serve your purpose.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Okay, well, Jazakallah khair for listening to us on 95.6, inshallah. That was the Armchair Pundits talking to you today. We'll be talking to you again, inshallah, all being well, in a couple of weeks' time. So if you're listening to us live, then we'll see you in 2 weeks. If you listen to a repeat, then I'm not sure when we'll see you, depending on when you're listening to the repeat. And then just as well, you haven't called into the studio if you want to listen to a repeat. But inshallah, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time, inshallah, with another show. Jazakallah khair for your time, inshallah. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll speak to you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
يا مصطفى يا مصطفى يا مصطفى